Our kids are facing an undeclared war on childhood. And for centuries, it's been driven by cultural forces more concerned with immediate economic growth than our children. Parents bearing the weight of hustle culture, laden with expectations and deadlines, feel trapped in a relentless cycle of busyness and pseudo-productivity. In today's video, I'll demonstrate why it's crucial to challenge the status quo for the sake of our kids. Through evidence from traditional wisdom and experts, I'll outline practical strategies to alleviate the strain. I feel strongly about this issue, which is why I've rewritten, reshot, and re-edited this video multiple times. I want to get it right. But first, let's debunk the idea that slow living is just another lifestyle choice among many. Slow living originated with slow food, promoting cooking from scratch and sourcing locally. It then evolved into movements like slow cities, slow school, slow medicine, all centered around seeking alternative solutions to modern problems by looking to traditional wisdom and practices. This movement honors our ancestors' wisdom, challenging the idea that modern advancements surpass ancient knowledge. And I think our experiments with pushing ourselves and our kids to the brink of exhaustion, our attempts to control them, and our tendency to compensate with gifts and praise have given us sufficient evidence that hubris drove us into our modern parenting frenzy. With the ever-quickening pace of our days, the ever-expanding girth of our stuff, and the boundless mountain of responsibilities, it's no wonder so many are at their wits' end. Now, let me challenge the idea that slow living can be reduced to an aesthetic. I don't want to suggest that the common representations of slow living, often tranquil countryside settings and contemplative females gently cradling steaming cups of tea, are completely shallow or not reflective of what it means to live slowly. They highlight a key aspect of slow living, drawing from time-tested traditions and integrating them into our lives. However, these scenes may wrongly suggest that slow and simple living is unattainable for many, or that it requires a daunting checklist. Bake the bread, raise the chickens, and wake with every sunrise to serenely sweep the porch. I never sweep my porch. And while I'm charmed by all those things, I want to distinguish this lifestyle from specific tasks or signals of slow that may exclude some families. Families who desperately need simple changes to build authentic connections, cultivate contentment, and balance priorities. Slow motherhood is about embracing deliberate parenting approaches rooted in traditional wisdom. You can adopt the values without baking the bread. I am a thoroughly modern woman who spends more time supervising kids on the playground than prancing joyfully through open prairies. However, the misalignment of my life with visual signals of slow living has not prevented us from slowing or simplifying. In his bestseller, Simplicity Parenting, Kim John Payne recounts his experiences counseling child refugees in Jakarta, where he treated post-traumatic stress disorder. Later, while working with affluent children in England, he noticed similar symptoms, attributing them to the impact of hustle culture. Despite initial skepticism, Payne recognized that these children faced chronic stress and insecurity akin to those in war-torn areas. He coined the term the undeclared war on childhood to describe this phenomenon. Excessive busyness and environmental overwhelm can result in various challenges for children, including increased stress, reduced attention span, impaired creativity, impulsivity, and lack of emotional security. These issues can lead to difficulties in emotional regulation and adapting to change. For parents, this can translate to overwhelm, strained family relationships, reduced quality time, emotional burden, and guilt. Additionally, limited time for self-care can result in burnout and decreased resilience. Before diving into the approaches I've used to simplify life with my kids, let's address a fundamental truth. You don't need a big life to have a valuable one. Embracing slow and simple living hinges on accepting this truth. Otherwise, you'll constantly seek validation through busyness, which won't fulfill you. And it's crucial to understand that meaningful contributions can still be pursued while living slowly, whether through raising children, work, creativity, or community involvement. This requires abandoning frantic pursuits and instead slowly cultivating your contributions over time. Now, on to the approaches. I've been rereading Sharon Creech's Chasing Redbird, a book I loved as a kid. It follows Zinni, a 13-year-old who finds solace in clearing an overgrown trail on her family's farm amidst personal challenges. There was an emotional overgrowth in her life, but in clearing the thick weeds covering that trail, she also unraveled the tangle of loss, confusion, and her burgeoning desire for autonomy. As a child, I missed the metaphor, but now I see my own simplifying journey mirrored in it. Many of us minimalist enthusiasts advocate for decluttering to untangle our lives. We know its transformative power. If our stories aren't enough, experts back up the benefits of decluttering. Dr. Maria Montessori emphasizes the importance of order for children's development. Montessori experts Simone Davies and Junifa Uzurdike stress the importance of order even for babies. Organizational behavior expert Elizabeth Sander has reported on research which unveils the harmful impact of clutter on cognition and well-being. The findings suggest that disorganization and clutter burden our brains, depleting cognitive resources and hindering focus. Put simply, if you're trying to get things done and you just can't seem to, it could be the clutter. In her eye-opening book, Hunt, Gather, Parent, Michaeline Doucleff explores traditional parenting practices in ancient cultures. She reveals how these practices cultivate kindness, confidence, and drive in children. Doucleff also highlights how modern Western parenting has strayed from these beneficial approaches, citing factors like the decline of multi-generational homes and the emphasis on material possessions, a phenomenon she refers to as thingamajig apocalypse. And let's not forget Jesus Christ's wisdom on this subject. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. A simplified environment is crucial for both kids and adults to thrive. Consider a simple scenario. If a child has 5 pairs of shoes to choose from when leaving the house, it can lead to complications. What if she can't find the matching pair or struggles to decide which to wear? This abundance of choices can overwhelm her and lead to conflicts when parents rush the process. Providing a clutter-free environment promotes autonomy and fosters peace in our families. So number 1 is simplify your environment. Last Christmas, I gave my daughter a picture book treasury of the Laura Ingalls Wilder series. In it, there was a daily routine Ma, Caroline Ingalls, followed. Wash on Monday, iron on Tuesday, mend on Wednesday, churn on Thursday, clean on Friday, bake on Saturday, rest on Sunday. As a mother managing a homestead, she had additional daily responsibilities. However, assigning specific tasks that didn't require daily attention to certain days brought predictability and simplicity, creating essential order in the family's life. In his chapter on rhythm, Kim John Payne wrote, "Whenever I ask a mother or father to describe for me a typical day in their home, 9 times out of 10, they begin by saying, 'There is no typical.'" In his recent book, Slow Productivity, Cal Newport suggests we rethink our approach to work, prioritizing deep work over pseudo-productivity tasks like emails and endless meetings. Newport advises limiting daily goals, drawing from his experience as a doctoral student at MIT. Initially resisting his advisor's advice to focus on 1 major task a day, Newport eventually realized the benefits of a more steady approach. I was, of course, wrong, and she was right. There's a calibrated steadiness to working on just 1 major initiative a day. Real progress accrues while anxiety is subdued. Now, you might be curious about how this translates into the life of a modern mom, so here's a peek into my routine. Mondays, video production. Tuesdays, either errands or bills. Wednesdays, more video production. Thursdays baking, Fridays washing sheets, Saturdays cleaning, Sundays rest and worship. Alongside these weekly tasks, I have my daily routines: one load of laundry, cooking meals following a set plan, tending the gardens, tidying the house, and closing the kitchen at night. Also prioritizing personal hygiene and getting dressed each morning, which if you have little kids, you understand why that's so important. I've adopted a principle from Kendra Adachi's book, The Lazy Genius Way. Decide once. I don't want to waste energy wondering what to do each day or falling behind on chores. By setting up predictable systems and limiting daily goals, I keep up with things while preserving my mental bandwidth. Another important aspect of creating predictable systems is organizing the home. I put this after simplifying because a cluttered home doesn't organize well. Let's circle back to the shoe example. Near our back door, we have a drop zone with 3 baskets, one for Peyton's outerwear, one for Theo's, and a shared basket for shoes. This straightforward setup has helped our kids know where things belong and given them independence in managing their stuff. So number 2 is create predictable systems. I've realized that my kids have a much better sense of how to live than I do. They grasp life's ebb and flow, seamlessly transitioning between work, play, and rest. They pitch in with gardening alongside mom and dad, then pivot on a dime to dashing through the sprinklers or lounging in the grass. Watching them has taught me the importance of pinpointing the key elements of our daily routines while also recognizing where we can be flexible. For instance, we always kick off the day with a hearty breakfast, but whether we follow it with a creative art project or time in the garden varies. Parenting advice typically pushes for consistent routines, but these suggestions often overlook the complexities of family life. And they tend to originate from individuals with education backgrounds who may be applying school-like structures to home life. This approach overlooks the fact that parents are managing more than just their children's education. And I think it fails to consider the broader goals families are striving for in the cultivation of values within their kids. In fact, I fear this method assumes kids can't shape their own days or reflects adults' desire to control their activities, potentially hindering autonomy and development of attributes such as intrinsic drive, helpfulness, and the ability to occupy oneself independently. While I believe in preserving the key aspects of our days, our children need these islands of stability. I've found that strictly following a set sequence isn't always feasible. Instead, I prioritize certain elements and otherwise maintain flexibility. These include nutrition, ensuring proper sleep and rest, completing household duties with optional child involvement, and fostering connection throughout the day. Were you to follow us through a week in our life, you'd notice a couple things. We prefer activities that the whole family can enjoy, like short hikes, disc golfing, and trips to parks with shady benches for mom to relax and read. We invite, but never force, the kids into household tasks. Some of their favorites include unloading the dishwasher, putting away laundry, watering the garden, planting seeds, and watching daddy fix things. I bring my kids on errands. Do things go wrong sometimes? Yeah. Last week I paid for $40 worth of shattered ceramic magnets that Theo knocked off a display. But these experiences are opportunities for them to learn appropriate behavior in adult settings. We keep our schedule light. Embracing flexibility with kids might mean cutting back on commitments and simplifying your schedule, as I found out myself. So number 3 is create a flexible routine. Navigating parenting today can feel like being a sheet blown by the wind, constantly changing direction with every trend touted by so-called parenting experts. I don't think parenting was meant to be learned and relearned by every generation, but many of us feel ill-equipped with a set of tools we inherited, so we keep trying new approaches, overhauling and tearing out tested and failed theories as we go. The question that comes to mind for me is, how do we allow our approach to parenting to evolve where it needs to, while also remaining rooted in who we are? In his book, Digital Minimalism, Cal Newport explores how the Amish community carefully evaluates new technology based on their values. He highlights their deliberate decision-making driven by a dedication to upholding community, simplicity, and a shared sense of identity. Growing up, I observed the purposefulness of the Amish lifestyle through my dad's work with them. Newport's book helped me understand the wisdom behind their choices. Despite criticisms of the Amish cultural structure, I believe aligning with our values, not cultural trends, fosters genuine peace. Here's an example from my life. A pitfall many parents fall into is relying on media to occupy our kids. I, for one, used to rely on TV for a 90-minute daily break. Recently, I made a big change and cut it down to 20 minutes. Peyton watches briefly while I put Theo down for his nap. To do this successfully, I stopped focusing on my fears about screens and instead considered how to promote a lifestyle aligned with our family values: connection to nature, family, community, and God. I found that when aligning ourselves in this way, even if screens sneak into our days, they remain in the margins. So instead of being a screen-free family, we treat screens as tools to promote our values. When the screen does come on, it's for our family to enjoy something together. So number 4 is orient to your values. When NPR journalist Michaeline Doucleff was tasked with reporting on how Maya parents in Mexico's Yucatan region foster attention in their children, she quickly discovered a broader narrative unfolding. The children not only showed greater capacity for attention than most Western kids, but also displayed more helpfulness, community awareness, and emotional regulation. This spurred Doucleff to delve into indigenous and hunter-gatherer communities worldwide, living among them to unravel the secrets of their parenting mastery and uncover how Western parenting veered off course. In her subsequent book, Hunt, Gather, Parent, Doucleff not only offers practical tips, but also unveils an approach that has significantly simplified how I approach guiding my children. Expanding on my limiting media example, I've come to understand how crucial it is to consider my own behavior as the initial influence on my kids. If I'm demonstrating rest by watching TV or being glued to a smartphone, they'll mimic that behavior. Doucleff's research on traditional parenting cultures led her to outline this formula: model, practice, acknowledge. So what did this look like? Model. I got a $90 flip phone. This allows me to put away my iPhone unless I'm using it for a specific purpose, such as to take pictures or videos for my job as a content creator. Practice. Peyton used to get 90 minutes of screen time during Theo's nap. I genuinely believed I couldn't get through the day without it, but now she only watches while I put Theo to sleep and then is promptly encouraged to turn it off. We follow that with some one-on-one time, games or chores together, independent activities side by side. Through this, we're practicing behaviors that are rejuvenating and restful, but not screen-based. Acknowledge. This part of the formula is to be used sparingly and only as needed. Doucleff emphasizes that acknowledgement is not praise. I see it as looking for opportunities to affirm a trend of desired behaviors rather than giving input for every instance. This is one example of how I reframed my view of parenting and applied it to our media consumption, but this formula can be applied more broadly. It simplified things for me. If I want my kids to be generous, I lead by example and offer them chances to practice. For instance, I always offer them some of my food, but I've recently started accepting their offers of food in return, even when it's been handled by grubby little paws. When they offer, I might acknowledge the generosity with a subtle wink or a comment on their maturity. It's also possible they won't offer. Young children don't always make the choices we hope for, but we continue to model and provide opportunities to practice the desired behavior. So number 5 is model, practice, acknowledge. In my opinion, the subject of simplifying life with kids isn't particularly useful if it fails to address one of the hardest aspects of parenting: conflict, in the forms of tantrums and misbehavior. In her time with the Inuit community, Duclef witnessed how they expertly applied the model, practice, acknowledge approach to help children learn to regulate their emotions. The community recognizes that emotional skills, like academic skills, are built step by step. Unlike many Westerners, they understand the developmental stages of emotional growth and have strategies to nurture them. I recently watched an Instagram reel by Revived Woman, a great account for simple living with kids. In the reel, she listed her common parenting challenges, including blaming myself when my kids struggle or suffer in any way. It hit me like a lightning bolt. I do this. I kept thinking I can or should hack our days to ensure they don't get overstimulated or tired and on. But I have to remember that my kids are little humans who are still learning appropriate behavior and how to calm themselves. Truth is, I wanted to hack our days because I lacked effective tools for handling my kids' tough moments. This is a huge topic, so I can't cover it all here, but I'll give you a taste. Today, I'll share the mindset shifts that help me reduce conflict with my kids. First, many parents struggle with anger toward bad behavior. The Inuits teach that if you respond with anger, the behaviors only escalate. By staying calm, you model the desired behavior. But how do we shift that emotional response within ourselves? Here, Duclef learned that Inuit people expect children to misbehave. Having appropriately set expectations can do a world of good in curbing one's emotional reaction to undesired behaviors. Often when my kids are acting up, I repeat this as a motto to keep me calm. Expect them to misbehave. Expect them to misbehave. Duclef also learned Inuits never argue with a child. In fact, she never observed adults engaging in arguments with children. They consider it to be demeaning to everyone involved. Even when mistreated, you don't fight back with a young child. Just leave the point alone. Whatever is wrong, eventually the behavior will get better. This is hard for me. I struggle to trust things will get better, but I do see that engaging in arguing or negotiating or over-explaining creates ongoing and unhelpful tension between me and my daughter. You'll likely have to employ a tactic of selective hearing, or what my sister calls dead face, to move past misbehaviors or mistreatments from children. But Duclef's book is full of tools for responding to tantrums, misbehaviors, and sculpting desired behavior, which helps me to feel more confident that things will improve under my guidance. Another crucial mindset: encourage, don't force. Hunter-gatherer communities teach us that control and punishment hinder growth and strain the parent-child relationship. Instead, they use more nuanced and creative approaches to gain cooperation. For example, when Peyton and her dad were butting heads over who would retrieve her water bottle, I jumped in with a riddle. The water bottle is on a surface in the room where we keep the bananas. Where is the water bottle? Peyton immediately leapt up and ran out of her bedroom to solve the mystery. Covering the nuances and tactics for handling conflict will have to wait for another video. But I want to assure you that there are tools available to manage and shape behavior. And if you'd like to learn more about them now, then I've linked to the book Hunt, Gather, Parent in the description below. So number 6 is learn to manage conflict. It was 2009 when Kim John Payne first published Simplicity Parenting. It was the 1980s when he observed the effects of cumulative stress on his English patients. I keep wondering, is the resistance to unscheduled time with kids actually about not being able to handle it ourselves? The majority of parents raising children now aren't just adults sucked into the false promises of hustle culture. We're the products of it. How do we let it go? In The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, John Mark Comer explores how Jesus' life serves as a model for living at a more natural pace. Comer recounts Jesus' response to his friend Lazarus' illness, highlighting his deliberate approach to life, even in the face of a life or death situation. Reflecting on Jesus' actions, Comer emphasizes, this rootedness in the moment and connectedness to God, other people, and himself weren't the byproducts of a laid-back personality. They were the outgrowths of a way of life. He suggests that modern individuals seeking a similar lifestyle intentionally slow down physically, noting, we are embodied creatures, whole people. Our minds are the portals to our whole persons, but the mind is not the only portal. I discovered the truth of this in a powerful way when I decided to slow down physically and verbally with my kids. It dawned on me that small children process everything more slowly, yet I was still prone to rushing in my movements and speech. Initially, it felt odd and uncomfortable, like moving in slow motion. However, it had a calming effect on my nervous system, making me more emotionally and mentally flexible. I stopped talking unless absolutely necessary. Instead, I use hand gestures and subtle facial expressions. I observe the kids closely, allowing me to anticipate issues or needs and respond in the least intrusive way. When Theo, my 2-year-old, marches up to the rock wall at the park, I don't shout, "Stop!" Instead, I walk up behind him silently and provide a spot in case he needs it. By slowing my body, I tapped into a soul-level need to move through life at a natural pace. If you're struggling with an addiction to busyness, try starting with one of these. Do tasks at half speed. Drink your coffee while it's hot. Make time for a craft. Do just one thing at a time. John Mark Comer calls it single tasking. Invite your kids to join you in household duties. It'll really slow you down. If you haven't noticed, this approach is to slow living what decluttering is to simple living. We're taking a practice that's about a shift at the level of the soul and making it tangible through bodily action. This is also a perfect example of what I said earlier in the video about the signals of slow that we often see in slow living content. I don't think they're shallow. I think they're examples of important practices that make the lifestyle tangible. I simply believe we shouldn't confine ourselves to examples we see online. And I think it helps to understand why we're doing it in the first place. So number 7, practice slow movement. Okay, we're down to our last approach. When I started scripting this video, I had a simple idea in mind. Share a bunch of slow living activities that families can do together, like picking wildflowers and catching a sunset. And I still think that would be a really fun video. But then I realized there's this mom out there who needs more than just activities. She needs a roadmap for transforming her family's life. So what you're getting today is a snapshot of my journey over the past 4 years. And in future videos, I'll be diving into each of these categories in much more detail. If that sounds like something up your alley, then consider subscribing. Now for the last approach. Throughout history, and even today in many cultures, the whole community contributes to raising children. From siblings watching out for each other, to neighbors offering guidance, to extended family pitching in, this collective effort is crucial. Without it, we're left to navigate parenthood in our small pods, making the journey much harder. Now, allow me a caveat. I don't see hard as a bad thing because we grow through trials. But there's also no righteousness in it, meaning we need not be gluttons for punishment, which is why I advocate so strongly for simplifying and slowing. And I'm sure there are ways to build a solid support system for ourselves and our families within the context of our own culture. I've already started to explore this as a next step in my slow parenting journey. But remember, we're meant to parent in community. So even if all you do to start building that community is hit subscribe today, it's one small step toward creating that necessary support system. And if you're feeling eager to get started on my first approach of simplifying your environment, then watch this next video. And until next time.